Welcome, dear viewer. I have finally decided to do one of my request videos. He's only gone and done one, and this one is for my good buddy Pato Izguierdo, who requested the album Melancholia Hymns by Arcane Roots. Just a quick introduction. I've never actually heard of this band before, and I've certainly not heard any of their music. But they're a three-piece band from England, Hampshire, Kingston upon Thames more specifically, and currently the band consists of Andrew Groves on guitar and vocals, Adam Burton on bass and vocals, and Jack Wrench on drums and also vocals. One of the inherent dangers of doing these request videos is that inevitably at some point I'm going to end up offending somebody. Your taste in music, shit! Listening to this sucked. Music is a very personal thing, and what means a huge amount to one person may not mean so much to another. I resent you for making me listen to this shit. So what did I think of this particular album? Well, I'm going to try and build up a bit of tension here. I loved it! I'm sure a lot of you might be picking up on a trend here that I'm generally favourable with most of my reviews, and that's because I've actually found when you have to listen to something over and over again, you usually start to appreciate it. You normally find elements in it that you just really love and you cling on to. A lot of times with these reviews, I found on the first listen I've not enjoyed the album at all, but on repeated listens, it pulls you in. Now, make no mistake, when I first heard this album, I didn't like it at all. But that was because what I was expecting and the mood I was in and where I was when I was listening to it. I was on a lunch break at work and I was in less than a good mood. I was not a happy chappy. I went out for a walk at lunchtime and I listened to this album and I didn't know what to expect. And I guess I was in that sort of mood where I needed something just heavy to go along with my mood, kind of take me out of it. And that's not what this album is. My first impressions were not good. But later on that night, while I was more chilled out, it was late at night, I actually settled down to give the album another go. And this time, knowing more what to expect. And that's quite often the thing I find. I don't know how many reviewers listen to an album only once and make a judgment call, because you have to listen to it at least 2 or 3 times, I think, because anyway. So yeah, I settled down to listen to it again later on, and I think this album made much more sense later. For a start, I knew I had much better an idea of what it is I was going into. I knew the sort of style of music it was going to be. I knew the vibe that it was putting across. And I was in a more conducive mood and also in an environment that suited it. I think this is an album that you very much have to immerse yourself in. It's very deep. There's a lot of intense lyrics on this that deal with isolation and, I guess, depression. I mean, there's certain lyrics that allude to suicide, I guess. But at the same time, it's a very beautiful album, very lush sounding album. The production is absolutely stellar. Very great production on it. All the guitars, all the instruments sound absolutely fantastic. Drums really pop, the bass is exactly where it should be. The guitars are absolutely beautiful. Really shimmering, shiny, glassy kind of guitars. Kind of got a Devin Townsend feel in that sort of high production value. You know what I mean if you're a Devin Townsend fan. If you ain't a fan of Devin Townsend, I ain't a fan of you. There's a very strong electronica element on this album. I did do a little bit of research into the band Wikipedia. I think their first album might have been a little bit heavier. I think there was a bit more sort of hardcore influences and heavier influences. Glassjaw, I seem to remember, came up, but one of the things I read was that Andrew Groves, who seems to be, maybe I'm wrong, but he seems to be like the mastermind of the band, he was expressing his love of electronica, which plays a very heavy role in this album, and it works very well. So, first song, Before Me. As it builds up, there's this sort of swell of keyboards and ambient keyboards that reminds me very much of William Orbit. William Orbit and Brian Eno came to mind a lot with this album, and also bands like London Grammar. But the electronica elements on this are used very effectively indeed, as they are throughout the entire album. Lyrics are used sparingly on this song, but it really showcases Andrew Groves' impressive vocals. Very, very impressive vocals this guy has. Quite a range he's got. He does do a couple of metallic angst screams at various points in the album, but primarily it's very cleanly sung, very heartfelt, very melancholic, as the title of the album would suggest. Great start to the album, very atmospheric, really brings you in. We're off to a good start. We continue into the second song, Matter. Along with the atmospheric, ambient and electronic moments, we also get some more progressive metal elements thrown into this one. There's a riff in here that wouldn't be out of place on a Mastodon or even a Lamb of God album. Da-na-na-na-na-na riff, before returning to the ambient sounds to take us out of this one. Third track, Indigo. The bass playing in this reminds me very much of a guy called Jeff Schmidt, who I discovered a few years ago when listening to Devin Townsend's Casualties of Cool album. There was a bonus disc, as there quite often is with his material, because he writes so much, and on one of the tracks, according to the commentary, which is very entertaining and informative, Devin was saying how he had a guy called Jeff Schmidt doing the bass. Reminds me very much of that sort of style bass playing. Tons of echo and reverb. Why don't you tell us more about the bass? Once again, Andrew's vocals really stand out on this track, and it's got elements again of London Grammar, really springs to mind. Next up is Off the Floor. This starts out with a flamenco style guitar piece before morphing into a funkier, almost Chili Peppers style riff, and then morphs into, again, some of the more progressive playing that we hear on the album. Really, really enjoyed this track. Next up we have one, really enjoyed the lyrics on this next song, Curtains. A real Radiohead feel to this one, I thought. This is a really beautiful song, despite some dark lyrics, which I'll just quickly go through some of those now. Lately, can you feel your pulse wanting to leave? The hollowness feels like a friend. You have no need to grow old. Your muscles will seize. Your organs frozen like meat. Some very dark lyrics. This crescendos into a Devin Townsend style outro. Huge crescendo, real big, luscious wall of sound outro. Epic. Really, really. Check this song out. If you haven't got time to check out the full album, maybe give this one a go. Really enjoyed this one a lot. Next up is Solemn. Now, as well as the previous song, Curtains, I also suggest that you check this one out as well. This one starts out with a single power chord. Sounds like it's going through an octave pedal. Really, really heavy, amped up sound on this one. This was another one of the real standout tracks for me on the album. Andrew's vocal performance, yet again, absolutely stellar. And towards the end of the song, there's some more aggressive moments, which really showcases his range and what he can really do. Next up we have ARP, which has got quite a Steven Wilson vibe, I found, to it. Very psychedelic, conjured up a lot of images, very psychedelic imagery, but that could well just be me. Fireflies is up next, and this one really has a very, very strong electronica instrumentation in this one. The London Grammar vibes come back again. This one has a real great use of keyboards and more electronic sounding drums. I'm presuming it's actually drums made to sound electronic as opposed to a drum machine. Do you even know what you're talking about? Penultimate song is Everything All at Once. I know it's very specific, but the drum tones The drum sound on this song reminded me very much of Accelerated Evolution. Devin Townsend again. That's just where my head is. Amazing chorus on this one, very catchy. The heavy bass kind of reminds me of Fomermut, the Italian Doom Lords, as well as elements of, again, Cloud Kicker, another guy who I've mentioned a few times. Vultures are moving in, boys. Vultures are moving in. And we end with Half the World. One thing I didn't mention at the beginning was how, not necessarily Andrew Grove's vocals, but the style, the production of the vocals reminds me very much of an album. I can't remember the album it was called, but it was by a band called Band of Horses. Got that spooky, atmospheric, kind of reverb drenched, lost in the abyss type tone. And this has a glorious outro section in. I really enjoyed the vocals in this one so much. Just going to read out the closing lyrics. It's a great song about just holding on, basically. Seems like all of us go through hard times. This seems one of those songs that's just saying, you know, just keep on in there, you know, keep on going. Be yourself when you're full of doubt, hold on to the reins. Be yourself, and when it's falling down, listen to the rain. Be yourself when you're calling out, know that we're the same, so keep your hands upon the wheel. Great climax to the album. This is one of those fade out songs, but it works perfectly for the outro to this album. I really want to thank my good friend Pato Izguierdo for recommending this album. Wasn't taken with it when I first heard it, but the more I listened to it, the more I just got enveloped in it. I found this very much to be a headphone album. I found this to be one of those albums that you really have to make time for. I know you have to do that with a lot of music, but you know what I mean. Some music you can kind of have and it grabs you and it forces you to listen. This isn't one of those albums. It's very thought-provoking, a lot of depth going on, very sensitive album, and one that I can see me listening to for years to come. So thank you, my friend. Great suggestion. So that's the album. So that's Melancholia Hymns. Check it out. I urge you to go check this one out. Very good. So what have we got coming up? Next video that's going to be going out is the first of another bunch of viewers request ones. Kyle J or Sile J. I'll go with Kyle J. Kyle J suggested that I start doing top 10 videos. Top 10 favourite songs from certain bands. Being the absolute attention whore that I am, vying for views, and seeing as my Machine Head videos have by far done better than any others, I'm going to start off with my top 10 Machine Head songs. Subscribe if you want to request, motherfucker. My viewers' request next week will be for J. Abad Caldero. Please, again, inform me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. And I'm going to be doing his request, which was All Our Gods Have Abandoned Us by Architects, another UK band. So that's great. I know they're a heavier band. I have heard a little bit of the music because I've already because I bought the album the same time as this one. So I've had a bit more time to prep for that one, or should I say, to know what to expect. So that will be coming out sometime next week. Also, the new Jack White album will be coming out next Saturday. So I'm going to be doing a review of that one. And I haven't decided what other thing I'm going to do yet. It might be another top 10 or something, I don't know. See how the top 10 videos fucking stop going on. How fucking much was that? How much did I go on there? What a twat. Yeah, so, oh God.